Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I'm delighted to be talking comics with creator Martha Schwartz. Martha, thank you for joining.
Hi, glad to have you or have be here with you and stuff like that.
Yeah, glad to have you too. And I see over your shoulder there are some lovely framed creations. Very nice, very nice. Is this your work that is behind you?
Oh no, those are classics. So, like, if you ask what inspires me, that's original Dan DeCarlo art. He is my hero.
Oh, nice, nice.
But yeah, I have my inspirations around me and stuff. So I got like old classic movie posters and um if you see my art, it's like I'm very inspired by the Archie artist Dan DeCarlo. So
Cool. Yes, I can see that. I can see that. We're talking Aliens West on this episode, but any collecting, creating from your oeuvre, absolutely. We can go there. I'm curious about what led you to comics. It sounds like film and Archie was part of the story.
When I was young, I loved cartoons. That was my biggest thing, passion. I would watch, I grew up in the 80s, so, you had all kinds of cartoons out there, like Scooby-Doo, for the Flintstones, and then later on, like the Smurfs, huge thing, a huge fan of them back in the day. Um, and so when I was doing all that and watching cartoons, and I love anime, Japanese animation, I was going way back when they were showing all the classics on TV like Speed Racer. I was intrigued by the art. But of course, animation for somebody in my age range, you couldn't like, yeah, flip books and you'd have to draw like the little bouncy ball or whatever, because you didn't have those things that we have today. But even though I do dabble a little bit in animation, that was my big passion was animation. But later on, when I grew older, it's like my gear toward comics and stuff like that. So I mean, originally it was I did enjoy Batman comics. I remember when the movie came out, and I was like gung ho going up to the theater just to watch it and stuff like that. And at the same time, I remember my dad talking about my sister loving the old Archie TV series back in the 60s. And so I gave that a try too. And then I fell in love with that because I grew up, I remember watching Josie and the Pussycats on TV and the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, Scooby-Doo and all that stuff. So it's a correlation of all of that. So um, to me, it's more tactic. I can see the comics, and so I took those images, and I was always trying to draw and be like more relatable to them, and the stories, and I loved reading the stories out of those books and stuff like that. And I lean more toward Archie because I like mild tunes. I'm more for the kids stuff, and I always like watching and reading like safer tone work. Even though Batman got a little dark because I remember the Bane era. Bane, I read all when Robin was replaced with what was his name? Tim Drake. I remember that.
Hmm.
I had those books.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
so I was like, well, I'll make it a little milder. So I went to the Archie route, and then I fell in love with Dan DeCarlo's artwork in the 50s and the old classic era, stuff like that. And so, yeah, long story short, so I started dabbling a little bit more with those kind of narratives. I'm like more on the safe side when I draw comics. And I remember when Dan DeCarlo passed away and Archie got a little darker, and I'm like, there's just no comics for kids. So
Right.
I wanted to start making more comics toward for kids. Now I wouldn't say Aliens West is a little more darker. So I like because I have a passion for both, because I always like I said, I was reading Batman, I like the dark stories. But before I made Aliens West talking projects, I was doing a comic called Seed Seekers, which was going toward
Mhm.
people are like saying it's like an Elf Quest, and I'm like I barely read Elf Quest when I was a child, but it was like my 80s love. I also like that cartoon Dungeons and Dragons. So Seed
Oh,
Secrets is like Dungeons and Dragons because they go into this guy is in this world. He goes into our, or he's from their world. He goes into this world, and they got to bring him over to their world to help restore it. So it's kind of like a little bit of nod to the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. So, you know, so I'm going back and forth, but it's like basically I'm like passion for the 80s cartoons, and then this kind of stuff is when it's so put together. But that's what Seed Seekers is. So, that's one of my projects as well. So. And
Cool.
then here we are at the Aliens West. So that helps.
Yeah, yeah, I love the range of creating. Very often, I'm most interested in creators who kind of have this um, broad interest, broad way of creating, multiple genres, multiple approaches. So I appreciate that. What's your creative process like as you're forming stories and putting the art in place and all of those parts?
Well, usually when I think of a story, I like, when sometimes you're just sitting around having an idea in your head, you think of all these things. Well, I can do this and I can do that. It's basically like what I think of and what would work or maybe work or what I think people would like. And I would jot down the ideas, just jot them down on paper. And then when I getting at the heart of the matter, it's writing it. I just write it all down on paper and what I think would work in place. So I'm not typing it up or anything, just so I can get a good creative story or idea going. Then later on, I'll go it into the computer, maybe even on my MacBook, and type down the story about pages of how I want it laid out. The good thing about it is I'm the artist, so I don't have to I'm not very good at writing. Like I can't really I can think about what going to draw, and I've seen scripts and I've worked with other people's scripts, and I'm like, thank goodness that they're a little bit, not as broad as I am. But when it comes to my work, I know what I'm thinking and creating. So after I write it down, then I put it into the computer and like try to lay it out the best that I can, but I don't have to go too detailed. And then I will start sketching out in the pages and page layers on my iPad, thankfully. 'Cause before I would draw it on paper. Actually, yesterday I threw out a whole bunch of my old layout papers because I'm like, I don't need that anymore. I use a computer. So, but anyway, I lay out the pages and then I did finally go through the computer and sketch out the ideas. If I don't like something, I know the freedom of doing it that's the great thing about two of the great things about doing it on my computer, on my iPad. I can take it to work, so I do all my stuff at work, and I can
Hmm.
do concept work on that before I like finalize the big drawing. Then get that done, and then I send it to my editor and go from there.
Nice, nice, very nice. What kinds of stories, what kinds of characters do you find most compelling as a creator?
Um, that's a tough one for me because I'm like, I really like when I do create characters and stuff like that, I try to think of a good character that people would like side with or understand with, you know what I mean? But I don't want to make
Hmm.
too many of them because when you make too many of them, like to me, if you make a story with too many characters, it goes all out there and nobody's gonna stay focused on it. You know what I mean? Unless if you do
Yeah.
like a characters, you might want to like keep them all in the same range or something like that. But I try to keep it focused where it's not too broad because sometimes I'm like I know the way the world is today, people like to TikTok fast videos. They want to like something that'll be more relatable and understanding. So whenever I do create characters, I like kind of keep it in that range to where, you have the hero, but they're trying to figure themselves out. They're not the perfect hero. Like even in Seed Seekers, the story idea is about how each one is individual but how
Hmm.
they are important to the story. How are they important to the story? You know what I mean? But they have like this, they have differences, but they still, what makes it work and how do they all relate and go into the character and how to help him out in the situation that it is. So that's that one. And as for Aliens West, um, it's basically like you have the main characters that are trying to relate to this new force that come into their world with the aliens because they're now stuck on this planet and they're trying to get off to going back to their world, we hope. But they're
Mm.
how do they work? How do they help each other? Because they're relating to each other and how they fit into the world, but yet how would they benefit from each other? So it's basically like, how we work with each other. That's pretty much most of my stories run into.
Nice, nice. I like that theme, and I was going to ask about Aliens West next, and the spark there, and what listeners should know about the story.
Yeah, Aliens West is what happens when you always hear the stories about aliens like the Mork and Mindy and
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
they come here to the world today, the 50s, kind of stuff. So that's where the Aliens West spark came from. Is like you always see these old 50s, the Blob, which they're kind of based on the Blob because there's the shape-shifting um uh what they call them out in the Indians or Native Americans.
Skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers, exactly. So they're kind of
Cool,
like the
cool.
skinwalkers, but the blob, because you remember the blob would always form and eat these people and they get bigger and stuff like that. Well, they not exactly that, but it's in a mix of things. But anyway, they're coming to this planet here because, but it's not the 50s, it's not new, it's not old. I'm like, what happens if they go in the old West?
Hmm. Hmm.
Before Roswell, before everything, before the Men in Black. So I'm like, I kind of got like the idea about where the Men in Black have kind of originated from. If you remember the series, The Wild Wild West, not the movie,
Hmm.
even though I did kind of like incorporated some of it because like Men in Black, Wild Wild West, two
Right,
of the
right.
biggest movies you could ever think of. But that's not where the idea came from. It's the old 50s movie, but it's kind of got a little dabble in there. But it's all connected. How these aliens get crash land in the Old West. And here, even though we had a little bit of stuff going on in the 1800s, not too much, like, but how did steampunk originated? What did steampunk come from? So I've got a little play of words on that. But that's where the spark came from. And now the main story is how do they get fit into the old west where they have to try to get back into their planet? And if they want to get back to their planet, if they can't, how would they like, you know, without giving too much away now, how would they, help the Americans where they because they landed in where? New Mexico.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, a lot of stuff coming through, but that's pretty much the Alien West Spark that's there. Old 50s movies.
Nice,
And
nice. Mingling of inspirations, the genre stacking. Very nice, very nice. Um, what would you like to be tackling next in your creative work?
well, that's my main focus now is just those two. I really haven't really thought about broadening it out from there, but not for now. I mean, who knows what sparks will come out, from that point on. But my main goal right now is helping other creators. I always reach
Mm.
out to people. I'm like, I'm an artist. I like helping out. I helped Travis with some of his books, Travis Gibb from Orange Cone Productions. I've done
Hmm.
a couple stories for him. I'm working on another one with somebody else, and I don't want to give it away too much because I don't know how forward it is going with that. I've done some children's books for some people, and I also paint. So I've done a lot of paint work for some people as well. So, I mean,
Nice.
it's never ending.
That is good. That is good. Good to have the creative outlets. I also embrace children's authoring and illustrating as well, so wonderful to hear that. Is there anything that we should be sure to mention, anything that I've missed before we tell people where to find the book and where to find out more about you?
Well, no, just keep an eye out for anything that, if you see my name on it, and also I'm like, if you're out there and you're interested in like hiring a nice young female, well, not young, but female artist to do any work.
I grew up in the 80s too, so hey, it works. It works. It's a good span that we live in.
I wouldn't say quite young. My health is not doing the best that I wish it could, but hopefully things will turn around. But anyway, I'm always here to help out with projects. I'm a go-getter, and my biggest thing is helping others in the creative process if anybody has any questions on it, when they try to feel like they're looking down on it and stuff like that, or the competitive market. I'm not here to
Mhm.
compete with anybody. My biggest goal is just like, and especially like I said earlier, it's like most of the kids they just don't have anything safe to read. I read comics today, and no offense to the comics, they're pretty graphic and brutal, and I don't see too many things for kids, and I wish there would be a little bit more out there. So, and I'm always here to help as well. If anybody out there, including you, anybody, I would love to help get that out there for the
Thank you.
kids because they need something safe to read because this world, it's hard. It's a hard world
Um,
and we need some we need some love around here. No kidding.
um, some goodness and some kindness, absolutely. Well, sending good wishes with the creativity, good wishes with your health. The invitation is always open as you're working on projects. Come back anytime, children's authoring, comics, any of the things. And many thanks for the talk.
Yeah, yeah. And in the final, if where can you find my work?
Hmm.
I have a website. It needs to be updated tremendously, but it's www.schmartzgraphics.com.
I like it. I like it.
It's a weird name. It's a play on words because it's my last name and my first name, but I actually got
Mhm.
it. I work for the Walt Disney World Company, and that's like my name in the Walt Disney World Company. Embarrassing as it is. But anyway, that's where I kind of got the name from. So yeah.
Hey, it's unique. I like it. I like it. That totally works.